Hello, everyone. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Linda Marsanico. Welcome to the A Train to Sedona. It's Wednesday, October 30, 2024. The A Train to Sedona is also the name of a book I wrote, a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. I talk about my failings, my successes on the journey. And I wrote the book so that my experiences could help you with your journey to make it easier. You can get a signed copy of the A Train to Sedona on my website at lindamarsanico.com by the book page. You can also find it in retail stores and bookstores. In New York City, the A Train is an express train, so get on board. Now, I have a free gift for you, the Higher Vibration Cheat Sheet, 7 tips to help you raise your vibration. The second tip is a walking meditation, learning to ground yourself on your journey as you walk along the path. And you can download that at lindamarsanico.com. Now, I have 2 disclaimers. One is that this broadcast does not establish a professional relationship. And 2, that the opinions on this broadcast do not represent Talk Radio New York City. My guest today is David McLeod, fighter pilot, author, software engineer, mentor, aerobics instructor, poet, janitor, lifeguard, musician, radio host, graphics designer, father, student, teacher, photographer, ordained minister, yogi. These roles and many others add up to a lot of life experience, which David McLeod brings to bear in his capacity as a transformational speaker, life mastery coach, experiential facilitator, and writer storyteller. As a certified master life coach with a PhD in metaphysical sciences and a DD in holistic personal coaching, David creates and shares powerful life mastery tools that enable adult men and women to transcend triggers, challenges, and obstacles so that they can express and experience the fullness of who they really are, and thereby manifest truly magnificent and fulfilling lives. Now, the topic of today's talk is the only 2 things you need to know to have a fabulous life. Welcome, David. And I want to say that's a very provocative statement.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. I'm delighted to be here. You and I have shared space before on other programs, and I'm just thrilled to have the opportunity to speak with you and with your audience today.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. So I'm curious about the statement, and I'm sure my listeners are too. Could you elaborate?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you elaborate?
The only 2 things you need to know in order to have a truly fabulous life. Yeah, that does sound like a lofty statement, doesn't it? And, I have to admit there's a little bit of marketingism in it, because really, when you hear that statement, the first thing that comes to mind, wait a minute, I got to know more than that, right? There's got to be more to it than that. Well, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to give away the first secret right away. The first secret, the first thing you need to know is that there's only one thing you need to know to have a truly fabulous life. So you see, it was kind of a trick of the mind in order to get you to pay attention. Now you're even more curious. You're saying, what? How can that possibly be? How can it be that there's only one thing I need to know? And, that's been my whole life work actually to come to that understanding. And well, I'm 70, I'll be 72 in March. So I've been around the block a few times, maybe not as many as others, and maybe more than some other people. But the fact of the matter is, I've had a lot of life experience, as you identified in that little bio that I created for you. I've taken on many different life roles. And what I learned for myself is many of those roles that I took on in the early part of my life, I took on because I was supposed to.
Yeah.
Society had kind of identified for me through various different techniques the sorts of things that I was supposed to do in order to, have a happy life. And I abided by all those things. I went to school, I got good grades, I did all the appropriate things that I was supposed to do. I went to university, I got degrees, I got married, I had kids, I had a family, I got my mortgage, I had, 2.5 cars. I did all the things that I was supposed to do, but for some reason, the formula didn't work for me. The formula did not bring me happiness. The formula did not bring me fulfillment. As a matter of fact, what happened over the course of the first 40 years of my life was that I just got progressively more miserable and angry and unpleasant to be around. And I know this happens to a lot of people. And so what I needed to do was to try and figure out what went wrong. How did I screw up? How did I mess up? How did I make the mistake of not abiding by the rules in the right order or in the right way? Or that's the sort of stuff that was going on for me. I was broken. I was wrong. I was defective. And of course, all that did was just add to my unhappiness and unfulfillment. So this whole process led to another completely different journey that finally woke me up to the truth. But it took quite a while. It took me almost 20 years to figure this out. This is after going through all that pain and discomfort and all the rest of it. And so I've been probably talking too much right now. You probably want to get a word in here, so go ahead.
I wanted to ask you, was there a specific incident, a specific week, a month, a time when you realized how miserable you were and decided what you were going to do, or that you would move away from that?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good question. And yes, there was a deciding moment for me. And it happened, surprisingly, about 3 weeks, maybe not quite 3 weeks after my mom passed in 1992. And, I had been going through all my life denying my anger and basically in denial about it. And of course, it had been a gradual build out over the course of that time. But I don't remember the exact date when this happened. It was sometime in June of 1992. My sister came over to my house. This was after my mom passed. She came into my kitchen in my house, and she basically stood there and said, "What the hell is wrong with you? How come you haven't shown any sadness or tears or anything after mom's passing?" And I quite literally snapped in that moment. Because the next thing that I remember is I had her up against the wall with my hand around her throat. And I was, she was off the floor. That's how tense and angry I was. And what was going through my mind was, don't you tell me how to grieve. But what came out of my mouth when I just looked right in her face and I said, don't you tell me how to be. And of course, immediately after that, I hear this very quiet voice in my head saying, enough, that's enough. Time to let go. And I just put her down and I started shaking my head. I said, I'm sorry. And of course, at that point, I was kind of mentally checked out. And I don't really remember too many of the details. I remember seeing her looking at me, yelling at me, but I couldn't hear a thing. I was completely out of it. And the next thing I know, I'm walking around my neighborhood in my bare feet, just kind of playing through this scene in my mind, saying, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
And also having this horrible remembrance as I'm walking around the neighborhood. Oh my God, my daughter and my son and my niece all saw that.
Mm.
Well, eventually I made it back to the house. And of course, my sister and her daughter were gone. And so my wife and all my kids were gone too. So I was left to kind of stew in my own juices. Now, that was the moment that I knew something had to change, but I knew it at a very deep level. It wasn't still in my conscious awareness. I wasn't really aware of what was going on. But, you know, my body kind of was telling me, and, you know, all kinds of things were happening. I just wanted to watch the time here. So over the course of the next 3 years, now this is really the crazy part. I was looking for support, trying to figure out how to deal with all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, I was still going to university. I was getting my master's degree in computer science. And so I was focusing all my attention on studies and, you know, doing everything I could do to do that, while at the same time trying to figure out this emotional stuff that I never had any training in, never had any guidance in. And so what happened was, eventually, after failing to find any support in the location where I was living in Edmonton, Alberta at the time, I finally decided, I got to get out of here. That's the only thing I can do. That's the only thing I can think to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I did. I escaped. I ran away like a big chicken, you know, can't face my fears. I had to get out of there.
Well, I want to say something, David. I think it takes courage to leave. It takes courage to go on a new path. You went in an opposite direction. Where did you go?
Well, so I just want people to understand the full picture here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to paint myself as some kind of a guru or anything like that. For me, what I had to do was to leave everything. And that meant leaving my wife, my family, my kids, of course, and the whole surrounding. I said, that's it. I'm out of here. I can't stay here anymore, because the energy here is too toxic for me. It's
Right.
not working.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up going to, I found a job, and I went down to Silicon Valley, and I started working as a software engineer down there. And of course, Silicon Valley is one of the hubs of personal growth material. So I ended up being brought into contact with all kinds of people and events and circumstances that helped me to slowly start to unravel all of what I had kind of built up over the previous 40 years. Now, go ahead.
You found an opening so that you could discover who you are.
Correct.
Now, I just should tell you that we have about a minute before we break.
Right.
And I think this is a fascinating story, of a lot of emotion, being told what you were supposed to be and being miserable. And it's interesting how when someone passes, it can be a wake-up call. It's a moment. And I wonder whether the deceased person is helping from the other side, you know, but these moments are very powerful. And as I said before, I think you had a lot of courage. It's hard to leave a family, to
Oh
leave
God,
comfort.
you have no idea. You know, because as I said, when I got down to Northern California, new job, new environment, new friends, everything. And but the whole problem was the pain came with me.
Hold
That
that
misery
thought now. I want you
came
to
with me.
hold that thought. Okay. And we're going to get back and talk about pain and misery. Don't leave us or abandon us, but start taking a break right now.
Yeah.
See you in a bit.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
If you don't have your health, what do you really have? It's time to feel good in your body and shift from struggle to ease. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Tripp, your host of Nourish the Soul, where we explore the sacred wisdom of your body while you sit back, relax, and go on a journey of self-discovery. Join me every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to awaken your heart, transform your well-being, and unlock a deeper understanding of yourself.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back to the A Train to Sedona with my guest, David McLeod, who's talking about pain and misery, about leaving his family.
Yeah, not exactly a great topic for people to jump into. This is not what I signed up for. That's not what I came here for. But the truth is that's what happened for me. You know, I ended up going down to Silicon Valley in California. And like I said, that pain and misery came with me. So at one point, I actually came close to, you know, pulling the pin, so to speak. And but it was only the thought of leaving my children fatherless that really stayed my hand on that. And I said, no, I've got to do this work. I've got to do something. I've got to figure this out. And I think Spirit, honestly, was guiding me this whole time. Although I didn't have a conscious awareness of that when that was happening. But like I said, part of what happened is I slowly started to encounter people, you know, teachers, gurus, seminar leaders, workshop leaders, all kinds of people just started showing up in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And bit by bit, I started unraveling all of my discombobulated belief systems. And I finally was able to get down to that nugget of truth that really is the most important piece of information that we all need to know. But I think what I wanted to say is all of these things led to another, you know, you asked about inception points or, you know, when things really, really took a change. And I can remember a weekend in May of 2003 when I did a new warrior training adventure and I had the opportunity to, you know, get on their sacred carpet and do my own work. And after releasing what I thought was just an infinite amount of anger that just really came out of me.
Mm-hmm.
What came behind that was a huge amount of grief.
Yes.
And after that passed, I suddenly had this sense of complete opening. I don't really know how to describe it. I have tried to write this in chapters that I've contributed to different books. It's difficult for me to describe, but ultimately what happened was when I finished all that work, which by the way, you'd think it would take a long time, but I think I was done in about 25 minutes. That's how long it took me to really unload all that stuff. But when I finally stood up after that, I had this incredible, beautiful feeling of, it was just like really, really warm love just coming in and filling up my heart space. And I remember seeing the color, it was a combination of blue and gold mixed together. And at the same time, all the people who were on the carpet, they were standing around me in a big circle, all these men, their faces kind of faded away. And all I could see was this beautiful gold and blue energy kind of going back and forth between us. And it was just the most awesome feeling of love I've ever had in my life. And that was my first so far, my only real deep visceral experience of the understanding that we are all one. You know, it was so powerful. I can't really tell you how powerful it was. And I knew in that moment, I said, this is what I have to be doing. I have to be telling people about this. This is what I'm supposed to be doing from now on.
Is that part of the truth?
I'm sorry, what do you mean? About my big secret?
Yes, part of the one thing you need to do.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
truth, this opening, this we're all connected, this supreme feeling of love and the energy that you were seeing.
Correct.
The oneness.
What I think what I have come to learn as a result of that, because when I stood up, I made a number of different promises, but one of them was I'm never going to hide myself again, ever, in order to please somebody else. I'm not going to put my desires and stuff on the back burner just so someone else can have what they want. That's not to say that I'm going to become selfish, I'm going to become narcissistic. It just means that I'm not sacrificing myself for other people anymore. You know, that doesn't work. You know, we have been told by all our religions and teachers and everything that we have to put other people ahead of us. Well, I understand the basic principle behind that, but it's false. Even Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, which means you got to love yourself first before you love your neighbor.
Yes, we need to put ourselves first.
Right.
The same principle as being on a plane. If it's going to, the pressure changes, you need to put your mask on first so that you can help the child.
That's right. Yeah. So I guess what I want to say is I came to an understanding that I had spent the first 40, almost 50 years of my life denying the truth of who I am in order to live up to the expectations that I imagined society and everybody else was putting upon me. All right. And so I came to the understanding that I have to know who I am for, you know, not the roles that I play, not the name that I have, but the real essence, the truth of who I am. And that is really the ultimate secret right there. Because once you get to that place, once you understand, when you peel away all the layers of story and roles and all the feelings that you have, all of those things, you are not any of those things. You experience those things. You have those things in your life, but you are not those things. I'm not even my body. You know, my body is simply a vessel that I use that allows me to move around in this three-dimensional world that we live in.
You're an eternal spirit.
Exactly right.
Yes.
And that is something that I had to come to understand for myself by doing a great deal of deep introspection.
Yes.
And that really, once I got to that understanding that I am a divine, magnificent, unlimited, sovereign, spiritual being of light and love, and I just happen to be having this physical experience, once I got to that understanding, pretty much everything else started to make sense for me. I now understood why I feel drawn to do certain things, why I feel drawn now to share this wisdom with people, because I think it's vital. I think everybody needs to know it. And that's now my purpose. My purpose emanates out of my knowing of who I am. You know?
Yes, I do.
Prior to this, in my earlier life, I just tried things. I said, well, you know, that looks like fun. I'll try that and see how that goes.
You tried a lot of things.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
So let me ask you, David, were there any favorite things that you tried from that list of situations that you were involved in?
Well, I think it's fair to say one of my favorite things is music. I still do a lot of music composition. I love music. Absolutely love it. It's a way for me to express my essence through sound. And it's a highly creative process for me. I love it. I create music all the time. I've got lots of albums. In fact, you know, this book that I just recently published called Gifts of Wisdom, Practices for Healing and Empowerment. I was so inspired by the authors of this book who shared their stories in here with me
Yes.
that I decided to put together an album of music.
Oh, how wonderful.
So there's an album with the same title called Gifts of Wisdom. But anyway, you asked if there's anything my favorite. The other thing that I absolutely love was flying. I was a fighter pilot for 10 years in the Canadian military, and flying airplanes was just an absolute joy. I love it. The problem is I really wasn't a very good fit for the military, you know. The military and I didn't get along too well, but flying and me, yeah, we get along great.
Have you flown since leaving the military?
Yeah, I've flown a few times.
Mhm.
Recently, I had the desire to, get my license and start doing it again, but I found it's just way too expensive, and honestly, it takes up too much of my time. It draws me away from doing what I think is really important. So I just hold that out as a memory now, and I just tap into it that way. I can still do music, and I can still do all these other things that I do, and that's what's important to me now.
So can you tell me about the role of spirituality in your life?
Wow. Well, it's interesting. When I was young, I was brought up in an Anglican church environment. So I was very, very familiar with Christian teachings, and that was my upbringing. However, as a part of this process of trying to figure out who I really am, I noticed that religion really wasn't helping me. Religion didn't help. And it wasn't until 1999, after I had left my family and I'd been introduced to the books by Neale Donald Walsch, Conversations with God,
Yes.
that I suddenly had a new sense of spirituality. I would say those books actually, they were instrumental in helping me to get back onto my path, my spiritual path. But I don't think of myself as a religious person anymore. I'm absolutely 100% totally spiritual. I believe in this concept of oneness. I believe that we are all one. I believe there is a supreme consciousness throughout the universe that's guiding everything. And yeah, so that is my truth nowadays.
We have about 2 minutes to break. And I wanted to say that Neale Donald Walsh's books were transformational for me. I've read almost all of them, and I would just have to stop after reading something mind-blowing.
Exactly.
Let me take this in. Let me take this in. They were, as I said, transformational, life-changing. And in my book, I give credence to that. I mentioned the authors who were inspirational for me, and he's one of the major ones. So,
well, I love your book too, by the way. I have read it, and it's a great little book. So I encourage people to go pick up a copy, man. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. And when we get back, I would like to talk about gifts of wisdom.
Okay. Yep.
So we can take it away on break. We'll be back to talk about gifts of wisdom, just hot off the press.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Broncu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hello, welcome back to the A Train to Sedona with my guest, David McLeod. David, would you tell us about your new book?
Well, thank you, Linda. So when I hit my 70th birthday, that was a while back. Now, anyway, I had this realization that I was thinking about this notion of eldership and what it means to be an elder in our community. And I was kind of disappointed as I looked around and I realized, in our culture, in a lot of Western cultures, we don't really value our elders all that much. And yet there's so much wisdom in people who are, to coin a phrase, in advanced years, even though really the numbers are pretty small, like 65, that's not really old, is it? But anyway, I was thinking about this and I thought, maybe I can do something to raise awareness about elder wisdom. Maybe I can do something to help people think more about their elders in a positive way. And so I had this idea of writing a book called Elder Wisdom. And so initially I started reaching out to people that I knew who were in my age range, asking them if they wanted to be a part of this. Well, as time progressed, the word spread, and some other people who weren't elders in the real sense of the word, but we're feeling a connection to their inner sage, their inner guides, whatever. They asked if they might be considered as part of this book. So I said, pardon me. So I said, of course, there's no reason why young people can't be wise, can't be sharing their wisdom. So I shifted gears a little bit and I came up with a new title. We're calling it Gifts of Wisdom. And so there are, in this book, 22 chapters, including one from myself, that cover all kinds of amazing stories about life and some of the challenges that we've gone through. You've already heard a little bit about my story today. And the other authors have shared really, really vulnerable, deep stories about their lives, which help to explain how they got where they are today. And in addition to the story, they also provide a practice that you can use to help improve your life. So that's the idea. It's a collection of stories with a corresponding practice, and each author shares that. Now, we published this officially on October the 8th, and we achieved international #1 best-selling status within about, the first week.
Bravo.
Yeah. Well, so I'm honored to have, this is my second international best-selling book that I've been a part of, and the first one that I have been the lead author in. So that's pretty awesome.
Yes, it is. Can you tell us about the other book that you are a part of?
Pardon me. I've got a bit of a frog in my throat here. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cough on air.
I get frogs in my throat all the time.
Well, I was part of the series for the Wellness Universe, the Gifts of Wisdom. Wellness Universe, Complete Guide to Self-Healing. There's 4 volumes already published, and we got number 5 coming out in January. And all of those books were best-selling. books, and one of them made international bestseller. I can't remember which volume it was. I think it was volume. I'm so sorry. I'm going to
Perhaps
mute
some
myself for
water.
a second here.
Okay. Take your time.
I'm so sorry about that. That is one of the downsides of aging, my friends. But I don't let it stop me because, you know, I got a mission here. I got stuff to do. So, and writing books now is one of those big things on my list.
I don't think anything will stop you, David.
Well, I hope not. There's so much I need to get done before my time runs out on this planet. And I'm hoping that I can accomplish all of it.
Well, I think you likely will. I have another question for you. What do you recommend for people who are struggling right now because they don't yet have the one thing? Now, as the one thing, I believe you're meaning the truth of who you are.
Correct.
And later you'll tell us the second thing?
Well, I did that at the beginning.
Oh, did I miss it?
Yeah, I said there's two things.
Yes.
First is there's only one thing. So
Okay.
you eliminate that idea. So there's really only one thing you need to know, and that is the deepest truth of who you really are.
Okay, that's very profound.
Yeah.
So if you can recommend something to people who are struggling right now, since they don't have that truth about who they are.
Well, I think, first of all, people have to come to grips with the understanding that we, as human beings on this planet, we all have an ego mind. And the ego mind, unfortunately, becomes a dominant force in our lives.
Yes.
And it's encouraged largely by much of what society does. If you look around, people are praised for having a powerful ego that helps them to, you know, get ahead in the world and all that kind of stuff. But in reality, the ego is a kind of a limiting force in your life.
Mm-hmm. Just take your time, David. Take your time.
I'm so sorry. This is a particularly bad day for me for some reason.
Well, perhaps there was a lot of pollen or something in the air.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, when you understand that you have this ego mind that might be limiting you,
Mm-hmm.
you need to, God, this is really,
Take
so
your
you
time.
need to do the work to
Yes.
quiet the ego mind.
Mhm.
Not get rid of it. That's not what I am ever going to recommend because, and some people do try and teach, you know,
That's true.
get rid of the ego mind, kill the ego. No, absolutely not. You don't solve a problem by throwing hate and violence at it. You solve a problem by bringing love to it.
Yes.
You bring a
I agree.
higher vibrational energy.
Yes.
You learn to deal with your ego mind as if it were a little child that just wants some love and attention.
Yes.
And for most of us, that's exactly how the ego mind shows up anyway. For most of us, the ego mind is like that little boy or little girl within you who didn't get the love he or she wanted and needed at the time. Maybe wasn't heard, wasn't listened to.
Right.
And so if you can take the time to just listen to your ego mind and say, okay, what's going on? Why are you after all my attention? But do it in a loving way, you know,
Yes.
and just listen
Mm-hmm.
without judgment. Oh yeah, I understand. You're afraid. You're scared because of this and that and the other thing. And not only that, you're trying to protect me. How lovely that you care so much about me that you want to keep me safe. So you learn to, excuse me, you learn to love your ego mind.
Yeah.
And by doing so, you teach your ego mind to become more serene, more relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not about shutting down the ego mind or anything like that. It's about inviting it into silence.
Right.
Once the ego mind is quiet, and that's not that hard to do, it just takes practice, then you can connect in with your heart and soul. It's much easier to listen to what your soul is telling you when your ego mind is quiet.
Yes, that's true.
And so when you listen to your soul, you are actually listening to your true essence.
Yes.
And that is where you begin to understand the truth of who you really are. And when you listen to that very, very quiet, loving, beautiful voice that really has no needs, it's not gonna fault you for anything you do. Because after all, the soul is an aspect of the divine.
Yes. That eternal spirit that we have. I'm interested in hearing more about the truth of who you are, which led to the purpose. You said that you're wanting to accomplish all. How do you arrange all of that? Because we were talking about this before the broadcast. You told me that you had, is it 3 different chapters to write in the books? And I
3
said,
different books I'm working on right now, yeah.
all right. And I said, that sounds overwhelming. And you said, well, you don't have to think of it as overwhelming. You could think of it. So tell us, how can you think of it differently?
I think in my experience of life, things became overwhelming when my ego mind was in charge. But when my soul is in charge, my soul always seems to find a way to do the things in the order that matter the most. And I have to admit, look, I'm not a perfect human being. I haven't eliminated my ego mind. Sometimes my ego mind gets the better of me. Sometimes you'll see me flip somebody off on the freeway. Okay, I won't deny that that happens from time to time because I'm human. And so every once in a while, I'll see that happen in my life. I say, oh yeah, there we go. Got my ego mind's active again. How can I bring myself back into my heart and my soul? So it's just a constant, awareness, a self-awareness, and a constant reminder and invitation back into the heart and soul. When I get into the heart and soul, I'm telling you, everything works out perfectly when I follow the guidance of my heart and soul. And so we were talking about finding a purpose. Well, how do you find your purpose? Well, first thing, you got to know who you really are. Yes. Because then everything else that you do is going to be in alignment with that truth.
Yes.
Right? When I know who I am, then I can start, I can use that kind of like I know that there are people who use these dowsing rods or something, I can use it like that. I can say, okay, I can point at that. Nope, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel, this one feels right over here. You start feeling more thoroughly with your actual emotions. You allow the soul to speak to you through the emotions, and you listen to what it has to say, and you let that guidance move you in the right direction for your life. That's what really it's all about. And it sounds easy, and it really is quite simple, but the practice is, like I said, that big challenging ego mind that's up here in the head.
Yes. The ego is the challenge, and it's very third dimensional. And I remember one of my teachers telling us that she was not a proponent of getting rid of the ego, but that we need to deal with it as heart, ego, love. And in my book, I have 12 tips, and several of the tips involve healing the ego, stepping back from the ego, dealing with the inner child. So you come to a place where you're softer. You have a softened heart.
Right.
The idea, because with a softened heart, I let go of judgment and I work to let go of expectations. I have much more compassion because I have compassion for myself first.
Exactly.
So it's a very beautiful thing. And we are pretty much going to break. And when we come back, David, perhaps we could hear more about your summit.
Okay, absolutely.
All right. And we can take it away.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
Hi, I'm Linda Marsanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the A Train to Sedona with my guest, David McLeod. David, you gave us the dates of the summit. Could you tell us the dates again and tell us a bit about it?
Yes. So we're doing a Gifts of Wisdom summit featuring quite a number of the authors from my book, Gifts of Wisdom, here. And we're doing interview style recordings that will be released starting on November the 9th. And I think we're going to release 3 a day for 6 days. And then there'll be an empty day in there where you'll get opportunity to go back and maybe re-listen to some of those recordings if you want to. And then on the 16th, November the 16th, we're having 2 live Q&A sessions. One of them will be at 12 noon Eastern time, and the other one will be at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And this whole thing is really intended to help us share our gifts, share the wisdom that we have accumulated together over a period of time, and to give our listeners and our readers a chance to maybe interact with the authors a little bit on a one-on-one basis. So, and each author will be offering some kind of a free gift as well as part of his or her share. And this whole thing, I'm telling you, the value of this thing is really immense. I'm telling you, it's probably valued in the area about $4,000 is what I would say. But we are offering it as a gift from our hearts to the people of the world because we believe that this stuff is really important and we want people to flourish. We want people to thrive. We want people to find out that truth of who they really are and begin to express and experience that in every aspect of their lives. Because that's, in my view, that's the only way we're ever going to get a world that is truly peaceful and happy if more and more people start doing that work.
Yes, we want to expand the energy of
Exactly.
Love. Love is an awesome vibe. And spiritually, love is all there is.
That's right. Yep.
Let's put it out there. And talking about love, I was wondering about your daily practice, spiritual practice, whether you meditate, mantra, walk, exercise. Could you share that with us?
Yes, all of the above. I think right now my practice, because I have a challenge with, as you notice, I've been coughing a little bit here. I have some lung challenges, some breathing challenges. So my focus these days is on basically walking my dog. And I do that 3 times a day. I do yoga on a regular basis. And I also do a lot of meditating. And in my meditations, I'm always, my meditation is just a case of focusing on my breath, and with each breath, imagining more love and light coming into my being. And anything that's deleterious or poisonous or toxic, I invite that to just dissipate and leave and mingle and recycle into positive energy elsewhere. That's kind of my process on a regular basis. I also do my best to eat good quality foods as much as I can, and just take the best possible care of this physical body that I can.
What kinds of foods do you consider good quality?
Well, I definitely like, organic quality foods, but, I have been doing a lot of research on nutrition and stuff. And I think that we may have been misled to some degree about what's good and what's not. Certainly, I avoid processed foods as much as possible and try to eat whole foods, natural foods. I think the word organic is a little bit overblown in some cases. You can get very good quality foods that don't have to be labeled organic. I think it's important to avoid GMOs because we really don't know what that genetic modification can do to our bodies when we ingest that. I think it's best to try and avoid that. So really a nice balance of good quality foods, high protein. I kind of believe in the high protein, high fat, low carb approach, because I think that is the way our bodies are meant to do it. But that works for me, and it might not work for everybody. I know that there are people out there who believe in veganism and vegetarianism and various other forms of eating. You do what's right for you, but just make sure that the quality of your foods are as high as possible and that you are getting all of your nutritional needs met, no matter how you choose to do that.
Yes, I understand that regenerative farming is a very high quality type of process as opposed to just organic. That whether the farm is any runoff is taken care of and that it respects the surrounding areas.
Absolutely.
And farms may spray a little bit just to maintain, but that the heart is in developing high quality vegetables and such.
Yeah, well, I think that there's so much that we have just I don't know, we've forgotten, we've chosen not to know, or whatever. I mean, I was reading recently an article by a woman who was talking about gardening and using garlic as a tool for keeping aphids away. And I thought, of course, why wouldn't you do that? That's perfect. So you plant the garlic next to your tomatoes and aphids stay away from the tomatoes. This is brilliant.
Yes, there are many practices that are natural that we can relearn, remember that we used to know.
Yeah.
I was going to joke and say garlic can keep some people away.
Yeah, that's funny. I used to say that to my kids. I would say, we got lots of garlic in this spaghetti sauce or whatever it was I was making. And they say, I don't like garlic. I said, what do you mean you don't like garlic? You can't even really tell it's there. And they said, well, why do we have to have garlic anyway? I said, because it keeps the vampires away. And they say, what? I said, well, have you seen any vampires around here? I took advantage of my kids, I have to say, but we had fun.
It's good to have fun. The endorphins that we get from laughing are amazing.
That's right.
Healthy. We have a few minutes, and I wanted to ask you to just repeat the truth of knowing who you are. It's an important message. If you could just emphasize it.
Okay.
In our closing.
Here is what I believe, that everything that emanates out of your life is going to come from your understanding of who you really are. If you are believing yourself to be just a mother, a woman, father, If you think of yourself in terms of the roles you play, then you are limiting yourself.
Mm.
You need to, well, you don't need to do anything. That's the first thing I'm going to say. I'm going to invite you to consider the possibility that if you release all that and start to get down deeper and deeper and deeper into the truth of who you are, and you begin to understand that you are indeed a divine, magnificent, unlimited, sovereign, spiritual being of light and love,
Yes.
happening to share this temporary human experience with all of us here. When you get down to that place, you'll begin to see your life in a whole new way.
Yeah.
In a way that you begin to see other people that you maybe never really connected with them before. You'll understand that we are all one, that it's not just a bumper sticker that we like to put on our cars. It's a truth. But you can experience it for yourself if you decide to do that work. It all starts with going within, but strangely enough, the more you go in, the more you tend to go out at the same time. It's a beautiful, beautiful experience. I highly encourage everyone to dive in and swim in those deep, beautiful waters. They're beautiful.
Let me just see how we're doing here. I'm to add to something that you're saying, our energy shifts when we're in that process of the journey within, because we're going into the core of where love is.
Exactly.
Different situations appear in our lives. Because we have energy, and like energy attracts. So it's a very beautiful process, not easy. You need to work at it if you want to do this, but it is very rewarding.
Yeah.
A last sentence or word to our guests, to our listeners, rather, David?
Yeah, I think the one thing I'd like to say is you are magnificent. And if you can embrace that, your life can change dramatically.
That phrase encompasses so much self-love. So thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
It was so nice meeting up with you again. And I wanted to say that next week, my guest is Sarah Jane from England, who is the master of voice and sound energy. And I'm very excited to have her here. In fact, David and Sarah know each other.
We're good friends.
And actually, Sarah wrote a chapter in your book. So
she did.
So thank you so much for being with us today. I think we may have a few minutes. It's a beautiful day in New York City. Remember that the A train is an express train. And I wanted to say that I have been on the C train is a local on the same line. And through my broadcasts and through my book, I hope to bring you to the express train on your journey to love and compassion, to love yourselves, to see yourselves as the eternal spirits that you are. And with that, I'll say good afternoon to everyone. David, have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Linda. My pleasure.
Take it away.